Hi, I'm Arthur. The Second Legion doesn't exist. Goodbye. Yeah, that was a terrible joke. But what isn't a joke is how much we don't actually know about the Second Legion and their Primarch. Of the original 20 legions of Space Marines, each legion having a Primarch, aside from the 20th Legion, which had 2 for some reason, there were 2 legions struck from the Imperial record completely. They were obliterated, and if you even so much as infer there is a Second Legion, or that you know anything about them, then you are probably going to get a bolt shell to the back of your head from a nearby commissar, whom was so kind as to relieve you of your heretical thoughts. Yes, of all 20 legions, the second one was one of them that got disappeared, and there isn't much to go on in terms of how it happened. So with that in mind, I'm going to propose an idea or two, while also talking about what I think happened. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be proven wrong. Is GW really going to release anything involving the Second Legion? They haven't since the Space Marines were invented. Though I did hear there was some info in the newest book about Angron about them. Like a single sentence uttered by a Grey Knight, which is like more lore than some other more mainstay factions get nowadays. What do we know about the Second Legion? Well, we don't know what their name was, and we don't know who their Primarch was. We do know that they did serve in some wars during the Great Crusade, and were likely in a massive war called the Rangdan Xenocide alongside the other missing legion. The easiest way out would be to say that their Primarch was killed during said Xenocide, and a lot of people tend to agree with that. But because I'm an asshole contrarian, I kinda want to propose a different theory that is probably incorrect. So to start, why are there 2 Primarchs missing from, like, a meta-contextual reason? To make the game more marketable. No, really. I know, it's weird, but originally they were unknown because people above game and above the universe could be cute and make their own Primarchs and legions and make cute Space Marine armors to match. That's just something that GW would do just to give you the option of buying more Space Marines just so you could customize them to be whatever you'd like. That concept has kind of fallen by the wayside by now and is a bit of an anachronism at this point. Considering if you sneeze in a direction, you're bound to hit some Ultramarine successor chapter that fits whatever criteria for a Space Marine you want to include in your army. There really isn't much of a reason to let people make their own Primarchs anymore, especially since it's been established that the Primarchs of 2 legions that were wiped out from record also had their legions absorbed into another legion, or were just wiped from existence, period. I suppose you could just make an army saying, hey, this dude is part of the Turbo Bear chapter of Space Marines, the last remaining carriers of the gene seed of the lost Primarch, and so on and so forth, etc., etc. But I remember in my community someone considered doing that, and we just started laughing at them for being a big silly nerd, which is really funny considering the hobby we're talking about. From a creative standpoint, it makes sense to have 2 blank spaces to fill in what you want, but I suppose in lore it adds a bit of a clusterfuck of weird info. There are moments in lore where Primarchs will recall or even miss their 2 missing brothers, only to be met with, hey, they're dead and they're never coming back, use it as a lesson to not be like them, like they both had committed some crime. As it goes, it is also implied that one of the other Primarchs, Leman Russ, was trained and genetically crafted to be able to kill Primarchs, and has even done so before the Horus Heresy. So, for my theory, I'm going to say, yeah, he totally did. Yeah, no, for real, he probably did. The theory I'm going to push is that there was likely some degree of betrayal, a brother versus brother type narrative, where the Primarch of the Second Legion saw what was happening to the Imperium, how it was just becoming a neo-fascist, dogmatic, hyper-secular cult that punished religious and superstitious beliefs with either death or having good old Conrad pay them a visit. Seeing all of this, they would have likely decided to secede from the Imperium, which, if you know absolutely nothing about the Imperium, secession is basically a fancy word for asking the Emperor to virus bomb your planet with the worst weapons known to man. The reason I think that this was roughly what happened was in some of the Horus Heresy novels, particularly the early ones, Space Marines, like in the Luna Wolves before they became the Sons of Horus, they talk about how fighting other Space Marines is like a total impossibility. The idea of brother versus brother is so far from their minds that they must have been removed from the conflict. And when Primarchs discuss it, it has kind of a similar tinge, but with that knowing idea that it has happened. It kind of comes off like that, at least in my interpretation. But when it comes to Leman Russ, completely different ballgame. So he was sent to reprimand and bring one of his brothers, Magnus the Red, back to Holy Terra for doing a fucky-wucky and wizard stuff. And if you remember that part, it didn't take much manipulation on the part of Horus and Erebus for Leman to basically go, yeah, fuck it, kill them all. Now, I know in lore, Leman is a bit of a glory-hungry maniac who goes fishing krakens for fun, but you have to remember, there are only 20 Primarchs, and no matter how much he was told Magnus did a fucky-wucky, there should have been more hesitation to some degree. Because, imagine, there's only 20 of you, like human beings in the universe, the only people that you can relate to, and the only people that you can speak to in any, like, consistent way, and they can understand your experiences. Wanting to kill another one of them is like so beyond the pale of what should be expected of you. So for Leman to immediately jump to, yeah, let's fucking break that giant twink over my knee, there has to be some kind of precedent for him to know that that is a thing that's possible. It just gets past that mental boundary in his head. So I think Primarch seceded of the Second Legion, of course, and Leman was sent to kill him. Succeeded, wiped out the remaining parts of the Legion that did not fall in line, and the ones that did and seemed to be useful tools were either absorbed into the Imperial Fists or the Ultramarines, because there is a record of that happening, just the Ultramarines getting significantly more numbers of Marines just suddenly. Is it a plausible theory? No, not really. Is it a good theory? Oh, even less so. Are there holes in it? Dude, the Horus Heresy is like a 40-book long series. Trying to find all of this information on the fly is like fucking impossible, but I've been reading a lot of like individual like posts online and like snippets from like wikis and snippets from the books, and with my rudimentary knowledge of the Horus Heresy, I kind of put two and two together and see that it makes kind of sense for that to happen. Well, I mean, the most logical thing is they died during the Rangdan Xenocide, because that seems to be the most commonly affected thing. And I'll get into the Rangdan Xenocide when we talk about the other Primarch, because I think that they were the one that fell to that. I just wanted to propose a different idea. Something that might have more meat to it. Because at the end of the day, I think just saying, lol, mind control, aliens did it, isn't really that satisfying. Also, I'd be a fucking moron if I didn't mention one of the fan Primarchs. There's like an entire alternate universe of like 20 different Primarchs, and one of the most popular ones that seems to even be transcending that, I think it's called the Burning Thrones universe, is this Primarch for the Second Legion called Icarian Anasim, the Second Legion Primarch for that, and the Primarch of the Lightning Bearers, which, from looking at all the art that people have done for it, is a fucking dope design. The lightning aesthetic and like the thinner power armor is just really cool. And to kind of support my theory that Leman Russ killed that Primarch, here's a picture of Leman Russ attacking Icarian Anasim that I found. God, that's cool. So if you like the video, make sure to, well, like, comment, and subscribe. I try to reply to every comment as much as possible. And next week, we're going to cover a different legion. The Third Legion and the First Chaos Legion of the Legions. It's also the one with Fabius Bile, whom is just the fucking worst.